Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 27th day of June, 2022. Well, it's supposed to be 99 degrees here today. It was, gosh, how much was it yesterday? 96, I think, 97, something like that. It literally goes from nothing, it's all or nothing, I should say, here on the high desert. 1 minute it's freezing, the next minute it's, in triple digits. So I don't know. That's summers here. But hopefully we're starting to do a little bit better now as far as the temperatures go. They seem to be leveling out so that it's not so cold at night. But we'll see. You just never know. But this is one of those days where we try to get things done early and then come in the house where the air conditioning is because it's just too hot out there. So anyway, I hope y'all had a good weekend. Let me get everything ready here. I think I've got everything out. Let's go ahead and take a look at the esoteric influences for today. And again, this comes from the weekly post that I put up over at Stepping Aside. It also goes out in a newsletter. If you want to sign up for that, you just go over to Stepping Aside and scroll down a little bit, and you'll see newsletter sign up on the side panel there on the left. But the web address is imsteppingaside.com. And if you forget that, just click on show more and scroll down a little bit and you'll see some links, and it's right there. So if you want to do that, or you just want to take a look at the website, that'd be cool. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you've come back, thank you so much. I hope that you'll all click subscribe and come back now and then, if not every time, and check in to see what the esoteric influences and the runes and the tarot and all of that have to say about how we can look at our lives and the experiences that we have. See if maybe it can give you a different perspective on things. So anyhow, let's go ahead and get started with the esoteric influences. For Monday the 27th, 27 reduces to 9, so we're talking endings, completion, generosity, spirituality. The rune for today from the Elder Futhark is Othala, the 24th rune. It means sacred space, the Akashic record of our lives, heritage, protection, prosperity, loyalty, traditions, security, inheritance, and possessions. The Geomancy rune, on the other hand, is Tristitia, meaning sadness, grief, secretiveness. It can mean grudges that are being held, either your own or someone else's, against you maybe. Also, geomancers of old considered this an evil energy with Tristitia. So instead of just, being sadness or grief, it's ego-based. I mean, we all feel sad. There's reasons to feel sad. There's reasons to be in grief. But sometimes it goes too far, maybe, or the reason for it is a little more ego-based instead of just an honest expression of emotions over something that's sad. So that's the difference there. Don't think of it in terms of just general sadness or grief. This is a different quality to it with Tristitia. Probably why they thought it was evil. So anyway, the sun's in Cancer, the moon's in Gemini, and the planetary governance for today is the moon. Explore new opportunities that bring you emotional sustenance that you can also share with others. This might include travel to new locales that awaken your spirituality and inner peace. Either way, this is a day where you can reestablish your sacred space and let go of sadness or grief that has kept you feeling off balance. Should others attempt to control your direction, feel free to maintain your own rhythm. This is not the time to lose yourself in a group that may or may not have your best interests at heart. Your perceptions are shifting based on inner contemplation, and you're experiencing growth that will ultimately contribute to a healthy sense of self. So that's something to think about for today. I'm going to leave this up on the screen, though, just in case the runes and the tarot cards happen to align a little bit with them. That's been happening lately, a little more than normal. So let's see what I need here. Okay. So let's take the rune. This is the as above side of the as above, so below, the Geomancy rune, and depending on the cards that I draw, it can be part of the below side. And realistically, that's just talking about spirit versus form. I mean, it can mean ego, the below side, but not necessarily. But here we have manas. It means man. It's a very complex rune. It's the individual within society. It's we see Vunyo with the two P's on either side, forward and reverse, as Vunyo. That's joy and fellowship. You see the X in the center. That's Gebo. That's balanced energy exchange. So it's really about how we engage with others in the world. You see Kenaz pointing downward. You can see it this way. You see Dagaz in the center, and then that's Kenaz in all directions. That's what it is. So you have both the light of spirit or the torch. It's a very higher self rune. Dagaz means new day, so it's the end of one period and the beginning of another. So there's a little transition or transformativeness about this rune. So maybe another way of looking at it would be to transform your interactions with others in a way that reflects spirit versus ego, maybe. Let's take a look at the Geomancy runes. We'll go ahead and I do that by throwing down 3 elemental one or 4. I keep saying that, don't I? It's not 3, it's 4. And I'll show you, see, and you'll see that it's 4. And it's like, what is she talking about? It's 4. Reminds me of I've said this, I think I said this before, when we used to teach karate. My husband, another instructor had said this. Oh, well, it's Tristitia. Yeah. So it aligns with today, maybe, and we'll talk about that. But anyway, before I get off track here, he used to say if students would continue to make the same mistake over and over again, it's that you've taken a picture of it and it's in your mind and you can't let it go. So you have to really make a concerted effort when that happens. Here's Tristitia. And I've been doing that. I've been really, and today, just Monday, just all flew out the window. So I don't use 3, I use 4 because there's 4 elements and I code them, each rune with the proper element. And then you put them in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. And then you come up with something that looks like this. Well, in this case, it does. And this is Tristitia. And remember, it's sadness, grief, secretiveness, evil, and grudges. So if you're looking at the 2 runes together, Manas and Tristitia, then maybe what it's trying to suggest is that how you interact with people could be a little more transactional than it needs to be instead of, a little higher self-oriented, doing it in fellowship and joy, maybe seeing relationships in a way that doesn't really produce harmony. Maybe there's an us versus them attitude here. Maybe the Tristitia aspect is you're feeling maybe left out of the greater situation, the greater experience of the relationships. Maybe you feel like you're being dismissed, maybe. So there's a lot of different ideas that could be part of this. And with the runes, if it's your first time here, when I look at the runes first, we're kind of establishing the significator for the rest of the reading. And what a significator means is just the overall structure of it, or the overall idea of it. The basic, thought process that we're working from. And then with the cards, we get a little more details about that. Hopefully. Sometimes not. Usually, though. Once in a while, I'll get cards and it'll be like, what the heck is this? And what does that have to do with the runes? So we do the best we can on those days, but fortunately, they don't happen very often. I could probably count the number of times it's happened on probably less than the fingers of one hand in all the time I've been doing this. So either my interpretation of the significator is not exactly, maybe it's some obscure interpretation or something, or maybe I'm overthinking it or something. Maybe that's what it is. Well, but I don't know. I think that this does align with the runes here. The cards do. We have the 2 of Swords, Temperance, which is the 14th card of the Major Arcana, so a soul archetype card. And I will definitely leave that one in the middle here. And then on the other side of it, we have the Page of Wands. So of the small cards, we've got the Suit of Swords, which is the air element, which is the mental abilities and intellect. It's justice, it's fairness, it's decisions. Just cutting through deception is another one. It's when we, start talking and we get ourselves into trouble, basically. And then the Page of Wands. We have one. The page means it's from the court. So we've got the court represented. So we've got all three sections of the tarot represented here. But with wands, you're talking the fire element. So it's dynamic. It's the spark of life. It's motivation, initiation. Think Aries energy with the fire element and the Suit of Wands. It's very, I mean, it can be pushy, but on the other hand, we have to have a way of initiating things, and the fire element does that for us. So let's go ahead and start with temperance. Temperance is, we see the angel with one foot on the land and another in the water. You see the same thing with the star, only it's her knee that's on the land, but still, same sort of thing. There's a sense of balance with temperance and moderation. You see the, let's see, is there a, no, there's not. Okay. So anyway, you see the angel pouring water from one chalice to the other. So it's basically, you see the glyph of fire on the angel's gown there. You see the brilliantly red wings. You see the rays of spirit of the creator around surrounding the angel's head. You also see the glyph for the sun there on the angel's whatever you want to call that. Well, it doesn't really look like it is. I'm thinking it's like a band that you wear around your head, a headband, but I don't see that there. So I'm not sure how that's there, other than it's an angel, so you just never know. But anyway, you see irises, water irises growing here at the edge of the water. And I have to tell you, if you've never seen water irises, or if you don't have any, I have ponds, and so I have water irises. And we also have flood irrigation, and there's a bunch up in the main irrigation ditch. But we have them all around our ponds, and they're just gorgeous. I think they're prettier, more delicate, really, than regular irises. Although I have others, and they're just gorgeous too. But here you see a pathway going up to a split peaks. You have one peak here, one peak there, and you have the sun rising between the two. So the idea here, and then of course you have the pond below. You see more than simply, air is implied, but you also see earth, water, and fire here with temperance, even though we're essentially balancing will with emotion here, because the dominant is fire and water. So water would be emotions and compassion and empathy, empathic awareness. Did I say compassion? I think I did. But if not, compassion. I think that there's an element of balance here. Again, balancing will with emotion. And oftentimes that, the air goes right out the window. The intellect goes right out the window when emotion and fire, or emotion and will are really fighting for survival there with one another, because you've got the will that wants to just go and do, and the emotions like, oh, maybe you better not, and or it's the emotion that's driving the will, that could be another thing. And if that happens, then again, that might be indicative of Manas and Tristitia here, the relationship between them. If you're very emotional about something, and sadness or grief or whatever, that's the heart of the emotion. If that's driving you to make a decision, then maybe we need to go to the Two of Swords here and bring the air element into the picture and factor that in. We see a woman in a kind of a grayish gown. She's sitting blindfolded on a stone bench. The water, the ocean's behind her. You can see a little bit of land back here. So maybe it's kind of a bay, but you see some rocks in the ocean. Now you see a little bit of movement in the water, but not a lot. So it's not really choppy. It's not completely smooth on the other hand though. So there could be something, a decision that's emotion based. Again, with the suit of swords and the air element, you're talking about decisions as well. And you see she's got her arms crossed in front of her, and a sword in each hand. And so she's trying to make a decision with the blindfold on. That indicates doing something dispassionately, to where you're not really being influenced by your surroundings or emotions or anything else. You're just trying to understand what's going on and trying to then make a decision about it. But you don't need any other noise coming in, influencing it, even from yourself. So that's the reason for the blindfold. And with her sitting like this, she's basically trying to make a balanced decision about something. We see the maiden moon above here. If you look at maiden, mother, and crone, you would see this, and then the round moon for mother, and then the other way for crone. So that's the maiden. So there's something new that needs a decision. In other words, a new direction maybe. With the maiden, you talk about things that are new. With also the page, you're also talking about undeveloped potential, because the page is the first of the 4 card cards. And I tend to liken, in terms of focus or maybe the underlying energy, I liken the page, the princess in some decks, and non-traditional decks it might be the princess, but the page with the aces in the minor arcana, as well as the fool in the major arcana, because you're looking at undeveloped potential in a lot of ways. Pages also indicate messages. They indicate someone who's a student, who's still learning. Depending on the cards they can be with, sometimes it can indicate a pregnancy or a birth. But again, you're looking at something new with the page. And here we have a page looking at his staff, holding it with both hands. He's in the Holy Land, because you see the 3 pyramids here. Now, if this were the knight, I would say he's on a quest, but it's not. So he's still wondering. The page is still wondering what the heck all this is, right? But with the page of wands, you're looking at again, news, a youthful person, opportunities. It's also present moment awareness, transformation. He could be a seeker. He could be a student. But basically, we're looking at new opportunity, maybe. And in terms of the runes, the new opportunity, I think, settles on probably Manaz, and learning how to engage with others in a more balanced way, in a way that produces joy and harmony, and brings in the light of higher awareness of spirit, if you will, into the whole equation and into how you do things. So maybe less transactionally. Now, as far as the 2, that's the decision making. You've got to step back and you've got to think, well, can I look at this situation realistically? With Tristitia, there's such a level of ego here that involved in the grief. So is it a pity party? Is it something that if you were to share it with others, would they not understand why you're so upset? Would it not be immediately understood that, oh, well, of course you're in grief, Is that what's going on here? So I think with temperance coming in, it's asking us to think about this from a higher perspective, to balance will with emotion, and to make sure that we're not acting on a level of grief that is perhaps out of control or not really representative of the situation that happened that put you there. And it seems with Manaz, it has to be relationship based. And so perhaps it could be that you're feeling oppressed. Now, the situation itself may be understood. Perhaps maybe you're involved with people that are just simply oppressive and don't want to hear you and don't want to respect your positions on things or how you feel about things. And so it may be such that you have to then say, instead of devolving into grief, you have to act on it. You have to make some kind of decision about it, and you have to do it in a dispassionate way with the 2 of Swords. In other words, get the emotion out of it. and maybe see this for what it is. Perhaps you're taking that kind of a situation personally, when in fact you ought to be looking at them and go, what's wrong with you that you can't respect my feelings? But all too often we succumb, don't we? We feel like we've done something wrong if someone else doesn't want to listen to us or dismisses us all the time. Maybe we end up feeling stupid, when instead we ought to be like, well, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting this way? Why? Because I talk to other people and they have no problem with what I say. I've said the same thing to my friends or my coworkers, and they understand what I'm saying. Why don't you? But yet that person may make you feel intimidated, you see. They have a strong enough personality, and you kind of get into that rhythm with them, and you begin accepting things that you shouldn't accept. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this in terms of how you get to where you are here with this particular energy, but it does seem to signal that there's some unrealistic views of a relationship maybe that you have, or maybe it's just how you see relationships in general. But if it's not that, then check in and just kind of see, is there somebody in your life where you feel powerless around? And you seem to stay there instead of and accept responsibility for it when it isn't yours to accept. It's someone else's. It's that other person who can't seem to be respectful enough to listen to you, right? So at some point you have to make a decision about all that and figure out, well, is this the person I need to be around, or do I need to change how I see relationships? Am I always putting myself in this position? Maybe it comes from early childhood woundings where you felt powerless at home with one or both of your parents, maybe, or a strong personality sibling, maybe, where it was just this constant pressure on you that you weren't, your views weren't welcome, or your position wasn't welcome, or how you see things isn't welcome, because only they have the answers, you see. If you grow up in a household like that, then you go into life without the necessary strength to then be able to even look at people in a way that you need to look at them. Maybe you accept things from other people that you shouldn't accept. And the shift that needs to happen in terms of how you see things, you need to see things in a more balanced, dispassionate way. And it's tough because if it comes from early childhood experiences, it's settled in, and you have to be able to see it from a way that gets all of the past out of the equation. And you need to ask yourself, is this fair? Is this fair that people are doing this, and are you being fair to yourself even with this? So I think that the direction, because I think with the page is looking at the future. Maybe the page is suggesting that instead of accepting what other people dump on you, if that's indeed what this is, and the resulting grief of it all, maybe you should think about how you interact with others. And if you're engaging with people that are literally just flat out disrespectful to you, it's okay to see that. It's okay to know that. It's okay to give that responsibility to them for their behavior. And then you can say to yourself, well, maybe maybe there's no point in trying to make my point with these people. In other words, maybe you need to find a new tribe, a new group, until you can see things a little differently with those people. Because especially if they're family, they're not going anywhere, right? And I know that the classic example is on holidays when you go and you feel, you've got this very loud, boisterous family, and you sit there and you don't feel part of it. And you don't feel like, and especially if they make snide comments at you, you don't know how to deal with it. And it's because you've spent your whole life with them not being able to deal with it. You don't feel like you can, because maybe if you start to, they double down. Well, that's not a healthy relationship, all right? And I think with Manas, it's really talking about how healthy are our relationships with other people. And if we're allowing ourselves to remain with people that just aren't ever going to get it, then maybe you limit the amount of time you spend with them, or maybe you walk away entirely. I mean, the decision obviously has to be with each individual because each situation's different. But if it's bad enough, then it's not, it's harmful to your, it's harmful to your whole psyche to be around people like that. So again, there's the idea of temperance and moderation and balancing will with emotion. You don't want to overreact, but at the same time, you have a right to think the way you want to think and believe the way you want to believe and feel the way you want to feel. And nobody should tell you otherwise, right? So that's a decision that you have to make. And I think with the Two of Swords, it's suggesting that we do that in conjunction with temperance, where we look dispassionately at things and we don't let one side of the equation outweigh the other. You know, we don't let the will get too strong. We don't let the emotion of it get too strong. And we find some kind of a healthy balance there to be able to look dispassionately at a situation we have with someone else or a group of, or family or what have you, and to be able to see it for what it is. And if we're accepting, in other words, if we're feeling powerless around them, got to figure out why that's happening. And again, it's being able to control the will and emotion of it all, and then being able to bring in the air element into the experience and thinking about it dispassionately, without anything interfering, you know, without your own, even your own perceptions interfering. Because I've seen this happen. I've done it myself, where I find myself accepting things and just giving myself away to it, and it's like, no, because you're really starting something that tends to get pretty entrenched in your behavior. And it's not the same thing as looking at something and saying, well, there's nothing I can do about this, and then walking away from it because there is nothing you can do. Some people that behave that way, that are very pushy and very dismissive of others, there's really nothing you can do for them. They're never going to get it, and they're too caught up in their own ego of it all, and there's just no way to get through to them. And if that's the case, if you can't see any ability to break through that shell of theirs, then you have to make a decision about it, because you can't keep putting yourself in a position where you're going to feel like crap when it's all said and done. It's not fun to sit there and feel powerless. It just isn't. I've been there, and it's an awful, awful feeling. So I would suggest maybe Tristitia then is really more about feeling powerless in situations that you really do have a little more power than you realize. Even if it's the power to get up and walk away, you know, and just not give them any more attention, because maybe they don't need it. You know, maybe they need to sit with the consequences, because it seems like they never do. They never sit with the consequences of it all. And maybe if they thought that they were going to lose something, maybe they might, who knows, it might be give them their moment of sitting down and thinking dispassionately about how they've interacted with other people and what they've done to contribute to the situation that's happening to them at this point, where they're not getting invited to family get-togethers anymore, or they're not getting invited to just, you know, lunch with friends anymore. It's because friends are tired of their nonsense. So it could be something like that. So anyway, interesting way to start a Monday. But I think that, again, the second paragraph here of today's esoteric influences about if others attempt to control your direction, feel free to maintain your own rhythm, and that it's not the time to lose yourself in a group that may not have your best interests at heart. And I think that having a healthy sense of self is way more important than spending time with people that seem to take great delight in making you feel powerless. You know, they enjoy it. And I mean, it's nutty, but they enjoy it. Makes them feel good about themselves. But think about that. If that's how somebody has to feel good about themselves, by making someone else feel like crap, well, you don't need it. They need to learn some things. Anyway, that's all I got. And some to think about anyway. Lots of different ways to look at this, as I said, but at some point, we just have to be able to think without other, stuff coming in on us, and try to figure out and reason out, well, what's really going on here, and make the changes, give yourself the space to make the changes you need to make, and then maybe give the space to others as well, whether they like it or not. Anyway, thanks for watching. And again, click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. Go over to the blog. All the 4 posts I do every week are out, and check those out if you want to. That'd be greatly appreciated. And come back on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another. And blessed be.